I am live with Jamie Winship today. Buckle your seatbelts. I tell you, he is really something. And I just want to welcome Jamie to his first IG Live. So here we are.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Great. Cool
Good.
to be on here with you.
Yeah, IG Live is just a fun place to have a conversation, kind of like a podcast, but more casual because we have an audience, a live studio audience.
Yeah, that's amazing. You look fantastic. It's great to see you.
Oh, thank you. It's good to see you too. I was literally just listening to you and Donna on your website, Identity Exchange.
Oh yeah.
And you have this amazing new video out about depression. Oh my
Yeah, that's right.
gosh. I was listening to it as I was making my breakfast. And we'll just dive into the deep end because we've known each other for like 5 years. So
Yeah, that's right.
we can just jump into the deep end. What's the name of the video series? And
Um,
then I'll tell you my story about me just listening to it.
okay, yeah, it's called Finding Hope in Depression. And it was a
Yeah.
request that we got to do something for people to help them find hope. And so that's what we did. We did a 21-day guide.
Mm,
And yeah, I just actually was having a conversation with a mental health
mm.
professional in Texas who mentioned watching it and how helpful it was. So I hope it's a blessing to people. I really do.
Well, I was literally just making breakfast for myself and Steve, my husband, and I was listening to it and I was so moved I had to stop cooking. And it takes a lot for me to actually put my fork down. And I put my fork down
Oh,
and
great.
I listened. And you know what struck me? Two things is the Bible never uses the word depression. So that's
Right.
number one. And
Right.
then number two, when the video moved to Donna, Donna is Jamie's wife, everyone. She's just a rock star. And she was talking about breathing in and breathing out
Right.
and how those words correspond to God. So
Right.
could,
That's right.
could you unpack both of those
Yeah.
things for
Well,
us a little bit?
yeah. Yeah. That was,
A lot.
yeah. No, breathing is huge, obviously, in centering and settling down your mind and your spirit. But what she was talking about, Donna's Jewish and from Jewish background. And so for her, when she came to faith, even then, Jewish people don't say the word God. They won't even write it because it's beyond. God is beyond words, and so it's Yahweh,
Mm-hmm.
which means to inhale and exhale.
Mm.
And and so when you're breathing in, it's the first breath you ever take. The very first breath you take as a human being is God. It's breathing in life from God. And your last breath when you go to be with him is your exhale.
Wow.
So when we're doing breathing exercises, we're breathing in God and exhaling God. And so that's what she was doing. But that's a great practice. So you
Mm-hmm.
think of Yahweh is the exhale, Yah is the inhale, and Hui is the exhale. So you're just constantly breathing the existence and life of God.
Oh my gosh. I love that awareness.
Yeah.
I'm very into breath work. I had asthma as a kid and, always had a rescue inhaler. And so breathing kind of got a little complicated when I was
Isn't that
younger.
interesting? Yeah.
Yeah. And this feels like it kind of uncomplicates it a little bit and is also
Yeah.
centering.
That's right. And
Yeah.
breath, in creation, the breath of God and the wind and spirit, the ruach of God, all of that is critical to the very basis of life. And so the Holy Spirit,
Mm-hmm.
it's all part of that and staying connected. So yeah, it's important. And for many of us, we don't concentrate on breathing,
Right.
but it's a huge part. Yeah. Take a breath, calm down, relax, focus on God, and then start to deal with the things that as you're correct in saying, the word depression is not in scripture. It's the word downcast, or you're
Mm-hmm.
overburdened or weighed down
Mm-hmm.
is actually the way it's spoken about. And so to come to God and unburden is the goal, is the process.
Huh. For whatever reason, I think maybe the word depression for me has a bit of a stigma,
Right.
Where if I think of myself as burdened, I think of that as temporary. So does that mean I think depression is permanent?
Well, I think it's interesting. Like, yeah, you're right. The word depression carries a certain stigma, a certain negative connotation to it. Really, when you think about it, though, what's happening to you physically, spiritually, mentally is, yeah, you're becoming weighed down by circumstances. And a lot of those circumstances can be perceived as an injustice. And humans are made to feel anger towards
Mm-hmm.
injustice. In fact, um, people might think about it this way: is if you experience any kind of anger at all, or anyone's experiencing anger, it's because they've encountered a perceived or real injustice. That's
Mm-hmm.
really the only time humans can get angry, is when they perceive an injustice. And if they can't act against the injustice, they feel powerless and alone.
Mm-hmm.
It weighs them down, and the anger turns inward, and that also presses downward. So
Mm-hmm.
anger can be sort of an depression can be an anger turned inward, or just the weight of being overwhelmed with something, really, again, where you feel powerless and alone. So it's working back to, you're actually not powerless, and you know this. You know this in situations that you've been through. You're actually never powerless, and you're certainly never
Mm-hmm.
alone. So that's how you work through depression, finding hope in it.
So easy, but yet so complicated.
Yeah.
So when you're in the middle of it, feeling powerless and alone, how do you get out? Especially if coming out of COVID, you've lost some community.
Wow. Yeah. Right, because humans are made for community,
Mm-hmm.
right? We're not made to be alone. We're not made to live in these solitary lives. A lot of our culture seems like it glorifies, individualism and all of that, which is a bit harmful. In some of the cultures that we work in, they don't even have a singular word for I, like an individual. They don't even have that term. Everything is plural, because they would never think of themselves as being not part of a greater community. So the Western challenge is there, is that we do glorify it in a way, but really it's not what we desire. So when you're in a situation, you said something interesting. It seems complicated. So all the way back to the topic of fear is when a situation is complex,
Mm-hmm.
like you get your diagnosis and you start to think of all of the complexities involved in the news that you just heard. I mean, and then you start to think of everything that's going to happen and all of that. As long as you're not fearful, complexity is workable, because all systems in the universe are complex. When things become complicated is when fear starts to tell you that it's not possible to work through. So fear takes a complex situation and makes it complicated.
Mm-hmm.
So when someone says, if you're talking to a person and they say, yeah, well, it's complex, the situation that we're in, that means that they're working through it and they know which part. When they say it's complicated, it means they're stuck. It's an indication that we're stuck. So when someone says to me, this is a complicated situation, my thing is, okay, tell me what complicates it. It can be complex, and that's fine. But what makes it complicated? Because complicated, then you're going to start talking about frustration and anger, and then there you go. There you into it again. So,
Love the distinction
yeah,
between those two.
right,
Huh.
right. Yeah, so you can say like a leaf is a complex system, but it's not a complicated system. It's just
Mm-hmm.
complex. Well, that's really true in all of life. Relationships are complex, politics are complex, but they're not complicated as long as you're not put in fear by them or feel powerless or alone in the situation.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Do you think that as humans, we kind of default to enjoying complicated?
Yeah, because it's a way to opt out.
Yeah, yeah. It gives you an identity too of I'm diligently working through this complicated, complex situation. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. As soon as I say it's complicated, I'm saying that it's probably not something that I can do. And
Mm-hmm.
so one time, Don and we felt like God had invited us into this situation. And the more we moved towards it, I kept saying, wow, this is way more complicated than I thought. And eventually Donna said to me when I said it's complicated, she said, what are you afraid of?
Go Donna.
I know. And then comes time for truth telling, right?
Yeah.
And I said, what's making it complicated is I don't actually want to do it. So I'm trying to find a way not to do it, but I won't say that I just am not willing. That's too truthful. So
Mm-hmm.
I just make it so complicated I can't do it, right? So it's kind of an excuse. Whereas to say that it's
Wow.
complex is probably true, but to say it's
Mm-hmm.
complicated is typically a person's way of opting out and not actually looking for a
Mm-hmm.
solution. Lots of problems in the world, people will say it's too complicated. It's not too complicated. It's complex. It may take years. It may take many steps. Again, just like working through a cancer
Mm-hmm.
diagnosis, it's time consuming. It's complex. But complicated is kind of a we're not going to make it mentality.
Hmm.
It's a real challenge for people to think this way, to
It
think of.
is.
Mhm.
And I think too, when we say, oh, it's complicated, it shuts down conversation. Right.
Right. Yes.
So nobody's going to question you on the fact that underneath your statement of it's complicated is I'm really scared, I don't know what to do, and I'm frozen. So I'm just going to put this blanket statement over this and I can be done.
Right. That's exactly right. So, and that's what you just hear it all the time. Think about the situation in the Middle East and people, it's like it's just so complicated, or human trafficking, or all these things where it's just so
Mm-hmm.
complicated, or educational problems. It just means we don't know a way out, and so we're just gonna just basically, I don't know, pass it on to the next generation, maybe even.
Yeah, which we do all the time. So is the out, or not the out, I guess the in would be, I could say it's so complicated, but if I'm speaking the truth about it, I don't know what to do.
Right.
Could you just make that statement?
Exactly.
Okay.
I mean, that's the way to start. It's like, and don't you wish you would hear people just say, right, like right now, we don't know what to do,
Right.
instead of just plowing ahead or opting out of something. It's just, I would love to hear a leader just say, actually, we don't know what to do right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's a
Mm-hmm.
complex situation. Let's get the right identities together and let's figure out a way each step of the way to work through the complexity. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know that there's money in that.
No, yeah, no, there isn't. We're not doing much problem solving currently.
We are not.
Yeah,
We are not.
yeah,
So going back to the depression conversation we had in the beginning, it's rampant. I
right.
just spoke to Dr. Greg Jantz, ran into him
Yeah,
at church a couple of weeks ago, and we were having a conversation. And I'm actually interviewing him later today on the
awesome.
podcast. And we were talking about anxiety and depression, and the numbers are astounding. So, how do we start?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think again, it's really kind of keeps coming back to the same idea. It's when we're confronted with an external conflict of
Mm-hmm.
whatever sort in our life, and it just shows the internal conflict that we're already dealing with. Probably, a healthy, kind of wholesome, resilient person looks at life as just a series of creative challenges, which there are all the time, every day.
Mm-hmm.
They don't see them as conflict. But for most of us, because we're not whole, spiritually, mentally, physically whole, we're fragmented. So we don't have a lot of resiliency to handle things. When we encounter these challenges, they turn into conflict because they produce fear in us. They scare us.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason we're afraid is because we have a wrong view of ourself and a wrong view of God, for sure. And often we have a wrong view of the other person
That is
involved, right?
so true.
So once those are off, everything becomes overwhelming. If I don't think God is for me, if God is capricious and kind of shows up or doesn't show up, or he's mad at me,
Mm-hmm.
that makes things complicated right away, because
Mm-hmm.
now it's all on me to figure
Right.
out, which is what happens to us. This is all on you. You've got to figure it out. And then you realize, wow, actually, I can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you'll develop an identity of like, I'm a failure, or I'm unworthy, or I'm not smart enough, all those things. And you see that just complicates and complicates and complicates.
Right. And then you have children and you pass that down to your kids and it
That's right.
becomes your legacy.
Right.
Right.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
So would you say, I just wrote this word down as you were talking, vision. You know, we change behavior when we see somebody else doing it well. So how do we do that if we don't have a vision in front of us of I'm downtrodden, which is the biblical way of saying I'm battling some depression.
Right.
Wow, I'm seeing this person over here and they they were depressed and now I see them joyful and contributing and doing this, that, and the other thing. What if we don't have that person in our life?
Yeah, I mean, then for me, I would, I would look for models in what I read, the scriptures for sure. Just if any sort of model that I can look to, because humans can't do what they've never observed. They
So
have to
true.
see it. They have to see it somewhere. We were doing a series of talks at Harvard on the topic of worldview,
Mm-hmm.
and so when I was discussing worldview, I said, we actually are living in a separation scarcity worldview. That's why everything is complicated for us.
Mm-hmm.
But in an interconnected worldview where there's enough for everyone, it's actually complexities that can be worked out. And so we talked through that, and the students agreed on that those were the two worldviews. But then they said, we know them. We watch the scarcity separation worldview modeled all the time by leaders.
Yep.
What we've never seen is a connection, enough, abundant worldview. Who is an example of that to us?
Mm-hmm.
They were asking me. What's frightening in a way is the people in that fellowship that I was working in are future leaders,
Yeah.
or current leaders,
Right.
and they're saying, give us a model.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And so for me, I said, well, I would look to like Martin Luther King Jr., Nelson Mandela, these kinds of leaders who understand forgiveness and reconciliation. I said, but their model is Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, so if Jesus is the model of that kind of servant leadership, then that's who we should look to. And one of the students said, yes, but he died. And I said, see, that's the point. Mm-hmm. He's willing to lay down his life for those that aren't necessarily for him. And that's a model that's very hard to find in real life, but they are there. And then we could always be that model for other people too. So
it's going back to it's servant leadership.
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. We say it's other focused. This is Philippians chapter 2. It's other focused, self-emptying. No one's taking anything from me. I'm offering myself. Other focused, mm-hmm. self-emptying, unconditional love, even for my enemy. That's sort of the high bar of what a human being should be mm-hmm. like. It's a high bar. It's the bar Jesus sets for us, but it is the goal. So when we think about being other focused and self-emptying with unconditional love, it actually prevents you from making things complicated. It really all the way back to that, because the goal is not self-protection and self-promotion, which mm-hmm. complicates things. The goal is other focused, the good of the community, which means the community is involved, which takes the weight off just me. And it just brings love as the motivating factor in whatever it is you're trying to work out. It's incredible if you're working with someone who's based in self-protection and self-promotion, how everything is conflict. When they shift into other focused, everything becomes just a creative challenge to them. Yeah. Right. And so this avoids feeling overwhelmed and discouraged and depressed and powerless and alone, because you're always working with the good of the community in mind in whatever you're doing, which gives you value, right? It gives you value.
takes a lot of courage to be a servant leader.
It does. It
Mm-hmm.
does. Yeah. Again, it
because
does.
because it's a I'm using quotation marks. Being a servant is a sign of weakness in our society.
Exactly. Yeah. When we
Yeah.
do this in university ethics classes and business classes, that's the concern. They say, well, if I'm a servant in a world of predators, I'm going to
Right.
get run over.
Right.
I'm going to get run over. And again, that's actually not true. It's that's what the sort of the predator says. But again, we have to go back to Jesus as the model. When Pilate says to Jesus, "Don't you understand that I Rome has the power of life or death over you?" That's the threat of the
Mm-hmm.
tyrant, is that they own your future. If you give them your future, they do own it, which is what most of us end up doing.
Yeah.
But if you like Jesus says, no, you don't, I lay my life down and take it up again. So if I can say, to my organization or my company or whatever, like I'm here to serve in this company, but you do not own my future. You do not determine my identity, and you don't own my future. Therefore, I can serve you freely without fear that I might offend someone or lose my job. And you actually become a much higher performing part of that organization because you're
Yeah.
free.
Yeah. And truth and freedom are so intertwined.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. Right. And
That's
really telling the truth at all times. And all of a sudden, you're walking in this freedom and in this peace that you just probably never even thought possible. Yeah.
right. Yeah, it's interesting. And when you're like interviewing for job positions or contract or sales or anything, if your idea is this conversation I'm having with this other human being, it's not a transactional conversation.
Mm-hmm.
It could be a transformational conversation because I'm here to bless this other human. If you go in with that attitude, how much more likely is it to form a lasting relationship with that person, business wise or whatever,
Right.
versus this person is an object. I've got to get the deal. I've got to get in and get out. Again, then it becomes kind of a adversarial relationship or a manipulative relationship,
Right. And as you said, very transactional.
and you can't tell the truth.
Can't tell the truth. And okay, so I'm going to grab your book. I
Okay.
got it somewhere here. It's always on my desk because I'm always quoting it to people. I'll find it because I want to show it to everybody. But I was reading, I mean, your book is so rich. I have to read 2 pages and then I have to think about it for a couple of days. But you were working in the Middle East and you were having a conversation with two warring factions of people and two groups. And they came to you and basically said, how would you handle this? And you
Right.
said, when they come into the room, I would say, how can I bless you
Right.
today?
That's right.
And they said, no way, you can't do that.
Right.
We don't want to bless these people. And then you said to them, well, how long have you been at war with this
Right.
group?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's true. It's like if two people are negotiating something and they're both self-protecting and self-promoting, and I mean in a marriage, in any relationship,
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna have separation. There's no way to avoid it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're coming into the discussion with, I'm here to bless you in any way that I can, it eliminates so much of the conflict because the person doesn't feel like you're there to take something from them,
Yeah.
right? And so back to servant leadership. I'm here to serve you and bless you, but that's really in mind. You have to have deeply in mind that God will take care of you, whatever the outcome. Which again is back to freedom, which is back to truth telling. And so we train our people that when you go into any situation, you do not get your identity from that situation, and you can't lose it in that
Mm.
situation.
Huh.
So you're free to go into the situation wholly as you truly are, and leave the situation whole, no matter what happens. once they understand that, then again, they operate at a much higher level of proficiency in their vocation because they're not getting their identity from what happens, right? Because they're
Wow.
yeah, they have
Yes.
a kind of joy. Yeah, let me just tell you, we did this experiment with a metropolitan police department where for 2 days or 3 days, they ran radar or speed situation, and when they would stop a vehicle for speeding, these are uniformed officers. They would walk up to the car and they would say to the driver, "Are you okay? Is everything okay with you?" Instead of, "Do you know how fast you were going?" When you say, "Do you know how fast you're going?" you've created fear, you've got
Yep.
conflict going. But if you walk up and say, "Hey, are you okay?" and the person's like, "What? Are you okay because you're driving fast?" And typically when someone's speeding, it's because something's going on in their life that's producing anxiety or fear. Is there anything we can do to help you to be less fearful? They didn't write a ticket. They stopped them to see if they could help them become whole. And what happened was the people immediately started sending letters to the police department thanking them, and they slowed down.
What a concept.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? Because they felt like it was a human interaction going on of serving and protecting. That's what they felt like. They felt like, wow, you pulled me over to serve and protect me as well as the community. And most people responded to that. And to the people that didn't, we, as the police would say, they just demanded that we give them a ticket. They were just so mean, they just demanded a ticket. But most people were so grateful once they understood what was happening.
Right.
That's serving and protecting, and this is what you're saying. And it creates community, and it lowers crime. It lowers it cuts down on the infraction. So imagine that just in every interaction that we're having in any vocation, that the goal is to serve the other, protect the other. It's just dramatic what happens.
Dramatic. I mean, and that's talk about legacy.
That's
That's
right.
that's true legacy that you're passing down that has the ability to change communities forever by being
Right. That's
by being a servant leader. And but I can see that it's a leap, because we have some things in the way in our
right.
head of,
Right.
again, that word servant. So it's going to take some bold people to really
Yeah, that's funny.
take some steps.
Yeah, it does. It is. It takes a lot of courage,
Mm-hmm.
courage, which is of the heart, encouraged people, courage to go into different vocations. I mean, I'm fortunate. I get to work with a lot of these people in their different vocations who are really trying to bring transformation to whatever they're involved in.
Mm-hmm.
And it's beautiful to watch, and it is effective. It's just, we call it empire versus kingdom. The
Mm.
kingdom is different than the empire, and most of us, all of us, are raised in the empire. We're taught empire principles. We're taught scarcity models of things, and so self-protection and self-promotion becomes the way you go. And when you shift to kingdom, it's a large paradigm shift. Then people need to see it work, to
Mm-hmm.
see it modeled in order to join into it. But it's worth it. I'm telling you, it is worth it.
Yeah. And we all put off energy all day long.
Yeah,
So if we're putting out that kind of energy into the world of I'm a servant leader, it doesn't mean I'm a pushover and a doormat. It's
opposite, right?
absolutely the opposite of that. And I just think about how that can change families and communities. And of course, my lens is all of those, but my biggest lens is health. And
Right.
so
Yeah,
how does that change your health and the health of the people that you interact with all day long,
that's right.
including driving?
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's true. And because our systems are constantly in fight mode. They're in
Mm-hmm.
fight, flight, or freeze mode because we just live in the amygdala, in the reptilian brain, constantly anxious about money and whatever, the future and climate change and war and all of these things. And your body is receiving these signals saying we're in battle mode all the time, and it can't rest. There's no shalom. There's no rest. And so, again, you know way more about this than I do because you've been through it. But when you fix your mind on wholeness and wellness and health, it's dramatic how it affects our bodies and then our relationship to other people. Yeah,
really
absolutely.
true. And I think I'm going to go. I see your book on my coffee table. I'm going to walk over and get it in a second because I want everybody to see it. And then I want you to talk about how people can get your videos on depression right now. But yeah, the health piece is a really big one. And I know that when I tell the truth, my stress levels just go down because that old adage, you're only as sick as your secrets. I think I kept a lot of secrets in my life.
Oh, boy.
Didn't want to step on any toes, and I was a people pleaser, and this, that, and the other thing. But one of the things I've learned from you that has been so helpful is just telling the truth to God. But if you're listening today and maybe you don't have a relationship with God, maybe you just, instead of using the word God, you say universe, right, which you have mentioned several times. And there are times when I look at my calendar for the day, or maybe a friend or a family member just got a diagnosis, and I might just push the pause button and I might say, you know what, God, I'm going to tell you the truth right now. I don't think you're big enough to fix this.
Oh, absolutely. I say that every day.
I say it multiple times a day now. I'm watching the news. I'm seeing what's going on in the Middle East. And Lord, I don't think you're big enough to fix this. And then I just go silent, do my breathing. And you know what? I feel like I always get a response.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah. God is love.
Mm-hmm.
God is love. And when you embrace love, when you're asking love a question, there's a response from love, just like love always gives a response. And so truth telling, this is my regular practice.
Right.
First in the morning, what I do is I think about what I have to do in a day, and I breathe, and I say to God, to love, to truth, I am not capable of doing all this. Mm-hmm. This is beyond me. And there's things about it that I don't know and don't understand. So will you fill me with your love and wisdom for this day, for the present tense? Love only operates in the present tense. God is only present in the present tense. And so if we jump ahead and start, going into the future with hypothetical scenarios, there's no grace there.
No grace. It's a dark hole.
That's right. So stay in the present tense and then just abiding in that kind of love from God, from the universe. Very powerful. And then it affects people around you as well, as you're saying. So yeah, truth telling. I'm afraid. Mm-hmm. I feel incapable. I feel powerless in this situation. Show me what's true. Show me the truth about who I am. Show me the truth about who you are. And then pay attention to what happens in the day as God, as love reveals itself to you. People may pray or meditate and then they don't pay attention the rest of the day. So true.
So true. Right. And so pushing that pause button, maybe every couple of hours, or when you get the nasty email, or you get the, somebody cuts you off in traffic. Yeah, just take a second, take a deep breath, pause a little bit. I want to show whoever is listening right now, which are a lot of people, I can see your book. You can see all my notes. I am telling you, Jamie, I can only read a couple pages at a time because I end up taking so many notes, and I'm always quoting you to my husband and other people. So Living Fearless is the book. I'm going to tag it. I'm going to turn this into a post later today. I'll tag it. I think you can buy it on Amazon. And then can you tell everybody a little bit about your website and then your depression series that you have right now?
Yeah, our website is identityexchange.com. And so anyone can go there, and there's several different courses on there and resources and podcasts. But the Finding Hope in Depression is on that website, and it's a 21-day guide to just work through that.
Mm-hmm.
And yep, you can access it there, and it's free, and I hope it blesses people.
Yeah, I'm looking at some of the comments now. People are saying, yes, this book, so many notes. Yes.
Mhm.
Um, and we were actually supposed to be in Israel on October 9th.
Wow. Wow.
And I took your book with me, and we were able to divert. Praise the Lord. And I just had this book with me for the next 10 days, and I read it over and over and over again. And it just really helped me to settle down, knowing that Steve and I missed that
Yeah.
trip by just a couple of days, or we would have been on the ground in Israel. And it really rocked me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah, it does. Yep. And yeah, again, it's like, because life is a
Mm-hmm.
mystery and we can't really obviously map it out. It's just great to know and have that peace that, you're walking inside of love. And for this is something that might be challenging to some of your viewers, is that in life is not a win-lose scenario. Your events in your life are not a series of win-lose scenarios where it's possible that, we're in these situations like, wow, this could really go south on me or turn negative or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Really, the model from Jesus is that it's always a win. It's a win-win scenario. And so because any situation that I'm in that I think suddenly I might lose in this, I will begin self-protecting and
Right.
self-promoting. Once I do that, then I'm outside of my true identity. I'll move into a false version of myself. So in every scenario that you're in, and as you're praying through, is like, show me the win here. What's the win here? And the win in that connected, beautiful kingdom worldview may be serving the other, right? It may not be that
Mm-hmm.
I get the big advantage or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
but I try and look at every situation as there's a win here, no matter what happens. And again, that gives you joy, it gives you courage, and it just makes it all less
It
complicated.
does. It makes it all less complicated. It lowers our stress levels. It's a blessing to other people, whether or not they believe or not.
That's right.
It's just you end up spreading love. And I again had read your book, and then there's a lot of great questions and prompts in here where you just ask the question and then you kind of close your eyes, put the book down. And one of the notes I'd written down when we were in Europe was, God made me to spread joy. And when I spread joy, I'm spreading Him.
Right.
And that's so simple. And you know what? That's a big win for me, but it's also a win for the people that I'm around, because it
Right.
changes my attitude and my outlook.
That's
Even
right.
if I don't want to do something, I can still find a way that's a win
That's
and be
right.
able to spread joy and love.
Right. And your identity, your unique identity, is your gift to the world.
Yeah.
So that people ask me like, well, what should I be doing and where should I be working? And I said, it doesn't matter. What matters is that you understand who you are, because in any situation that you're in,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to give away what you believe to be true about yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
so if you understand what is actually true about yourself, it's a gift to the world. If you don't understand that, then again, it'll be self-focused, and it creates
It creates
conflict.
conflict, and life is hard enough. Let's not make it any harder
Right.
by
Please. Yeah.
our choices and the things that are in our heads. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
oh, Jamie, thank you so much. Your first IG Live, how did it go?
Hey, this is great.
Yeah, let's do it again.
Yeah, anytime. I would do it with you anytime. I don't know
Okay.
if I would just do it,
Okay.
but
Well,
yeah,
maybe next time too, Donna can come on.
yeah, that
Yeah,
would be
Donna
great.
is a gift to humanity. So, yeah, thank you so much for
Yeah.
coming on. And this was really fun. Get Jamie's book. I'm telling you, it will change your life. Read 2 pages at a time. That's what I do.
Thank you. Thanks
All
for
right.
having me.
Thanks, Jamie. See
Bye
you
bye.
soon. Take care. Bye
Bye.
bye.